I'm seeing a really big trend in self-loathing, and I feel like that's because a lot of people are trying to look for opportunities in the same spot, and maybe those opportunities are no longer there. They probably served someone else a while ago, and people are clearly missing the opportunities that may be right in front of them, or may not be as clear, but be just as rewarding. And I just kind of want to make this video to help people see the opportunities that they may be missing and see that pretty much everything can become an opportunity. It just depends on how you look at it. So without further ado, let's start. There's a pretty popular saying that luck is essentially when preparation meets opportunity. And before, when I was a kid, I probably would have said, yeah, whatever. But now I could never agree with it more, because a lot of the so-called luck that I faced happened to me because of the work that I put in, behind closed doors when no one was watching. And it was a little bit frustrating after the fact because the opportunities were right in front of my face and I never really saw them. They were so in front of my face that they could literally spit on me, pause. But that's how close they are if you can just look to see them. And a lot of people really don't see them because they have their own problems that they're dealing with. And that brings me to the first thing I want to talk about, which is self-improvement. You'll be a lot more receptive to new opportunities if you've put in the work yourself and are now more confident in yourself because you've improved. For a lot of things like dating or looking for jobs or even starting a business, a lot of people discourage themselves because they don't have that self-belief, because they've never looked inward or tried to solve their own vices. And what happens is all these opportunities that they could probably have, they immediately shut down themselves because, it's out of the question. It's out of their box that they're in, that they've been stuck in their entire lives. And that used to be me too. My life consisted of eating chips, playing video games, and going absolutely ham on the hub. For the most part, I was a chud for longer than I was normal, if whatever normal means. And I couldn't even fathom taking on certain opportunities just because of the complete lack of, effort I put into myself. I didn't believe I had the capacity to even do certain things, which just kept me trapped for years upon years. And for some reason, my dumb ass would always expect the world around me to change rather than me just having to accept my circumstances and build on from there. I think the best thing you can do is really accept your circumstances. Some people are good at some things and other people not so much. Like take Elon Musk, for example. The richest guy in the world, insanely good at starting businesses. Now, just imagine if he tried to pursue competitive dancing or something like that. Have you seen those competitive dancing videos where one person's in the circle and everyone's around them yeah. Imagine one of those people with Elon Musk's face. He understood his strengths and he went ahead and tried to maximize them to the best of his ability. And because of that, all those opportunities around him came to him. And all in all, I believe self-improvement is the foundation for this. If you focus on yourself and improve yourself, even if it's slowly, you'll even start to interpret things that you normally would have interpreted in a negative way in a much more positive light. For example, let's say you're out in the town, right? And you see a beautiful girl looking at you. If you were self-improving and looking at things in a more positive way, you'd see that as an opportunity. You would go right up to her and you'd say hi, introduce yourself, whatever. You take action. Now imagine if you looked at it in a more negative way and you kind of brushed it off. Who knows what that could have led into, That could have been your soulmate, You could have had 5 kids and lived in some ranch or something. Or even if it didn't work out, you could have met someone who really made you happy, or maybe found some new opportunity somewhere where you would never thought before. Always preparing yourself really opens up doors that you can't see until it's time to actually see them. Yeah, that was a bar. But anyways, moving on from that, a lot of the time, even if you are working on yourself, you may not see opportunities because there's so much noise around you. Nowadays, everything wants your attention, and you really have to be frugal with your attention, or else you won't be able to do things that really matter or really make your life a lot better. I remember watching this video, this Kevin O'Leary interview. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen it, where he's talking about Steve Jobs and how Steve Jobs is so locked in. And Steve Jobs kind of created this framework called the signal to noise ratio, where about 80% of his time is devoted to 3 core issues with the business, and then devotes the other 20% to noise, email and stuff like that. A lot of the time, most people's noise ratio is at 90%. So people aren't even able to focus on the bare minimum stuff that they actually need to do, let alone see beyond that stuff towards other opportunities. And that used to be me too. There were some occasions where I would, get up and play video games or go on my phone before I even made my bed. And, occasionally that's still me now. I'm just trying to be a bit more conscious about it so I can cut out a lot of that noise and just receive new ideas. And I can't stress enough how important it is to actually just sit there and not take in any input so new ideas can flow through you. Because a lot of opportunities are really unconventional, and that's kind of the reason why they're opportunities, because most people don't even see them. And even when they do see them, they don't really pursue them hard enough for them to actually bloom into something greater. And if you want an example of this, you could literally look anywhere in your house. Like as I'm talking, I'm looking at my Xbox controller. And even though Microsoft may have commissioned like the controller as a whole, most of the components were made by individual businesses. Like I'm looking at the buttons right now, the colored buttons. And what this is a result of is probably like some dude in China or like a small group of people who are just like, yo, let's just make controller buttons for a living. And then they went ahead and pursued it, and now they're probably making a bag off of controller buttons. Just off the fact that they saw the opportunity and they went ahead and took it has probably made these people millionaires. Or to give another example, I'm in a garage right now and I'm looking at the garage door. Someone's probably cleared millions of dollars just off of garage doors, while other people are probably trying to be like lawyers or doctors, like the traditional paths. And I'm not trying to hate on those types of jobs. I'm just trying to say to the people who maybe can't cut it at those, it's not the end of the world, and there's plenty of opportunities around. It's just what you make of them. And you also want to put yourself in an environment too where you're going to make the most out of what you can. For example, let's say you're like a pretty smart person and you're decently hardworking, but you're trying to go into like a super competitive industry that you may not be entirely suited for. Like let's say you want to go for like electrical engineering or something like that. You can probably be about average in that. Or maybe you can make the switch to be like an electrician where you can just maximize your potential because now the environment that you're in is more suited to your strengths. Or I can even use that example for like dating. You may not be the best looking person in the club or it may not be the richest. But let's say instead of going into a nightclub, you go to like a book club or like a poetry club. You may have more potential prospects than you would in a normal club just because your capabilities may be more rare or more beneficial in that environment. You could probably be like a mediocre football player and have like an average or even below average life. Or you could be like the best Magic the Gathering player ever, and your quality of life would be way higher than if you try to still pursue football. I'm going to stress it again, but just assess yourself and try to see the opportunities that you can best pursue and go for them. And the last thing I'm going to talk about, and I think a lot of people get wrong, is that failing is actually an opportunity. Before I would avoid things off of fear of failure and what that might bring, but now I'm way more open to it because now I know that whatever I attempt, if I fail at it, I'm going to be better than I was before I started. I'm always going to be at a level 0 if I never start, so I might as well start and see what that brings. And I think that's it for today. If I were to say anything, it's that you won't see a thing if your eyes are always closed. You can interpret that how you will. And yeah, if this video provided you any value, feel free to like and subscribe and hit me up on Patreon. Just kidding, I don't fucking have that. Alright, later.